Don't be sad, Suletta. If something bad happens to your Elan, we can just go to the store and get a brand new one.
Powerful Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby. For those of you who are thinking that Mobile Suit Gundam The Witch from Mercury was starting to soften up a little bit when compared to its prologue, well, get ready to shit your pants with fear because this was a really freaky, dark episode. Not to mention, you will never hear the song Happy Birthday the same way again. I don't usually do this too much in my reviews or discussions, but this is a spoiler warning. If you have not watched this episode of The Witch from Mercury, please go watch it, come back so you can join in on the discussion for this episode because a lot of crazy shit goes down this time. Oh yeah, and of course, if you're liking my content, make sure to hit the like button. If you're loving it, please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. But now, we gotta talk about the latest episode of the series, which ultimately is about the duel between Suletta and Elan, but it also has some pretty big revelations about Elan Ceres, like the fact that, well, he's not the real Elan at all. So one of the biggest revelations about Elan is that essentially he is an enhanced human. He has been genetically modified to be able to pilot his specific mobile suit, the Ferract Gundam, and that alone was a pretty big revelation. But I did not expect that he was actually going to be a surrogate of another character. That is to say, he's not the real Elan Ceres. That character is actually introduced in this episode, and he's a real major douchebag. Yes, it appears that Pale Technologies has been doing some really messed up things behind the scenes, such as creating the surrogates of the real Elan Ceres, who apparently is one of the benefactors of this group, and essentially what they do is they bring in these orphaned children, or at least these people who have no pasts or anything to them, and they surgically modify them to look like the real Elan. Essentially, they end up acting as his double, and the implication, of course, being that the current Elan in this episode that battles against Suletta is number 4, not just a clever reference to 4 Morasame from Zeta Gundam. Which, by the way, I never even mentioned that in my last review. I just saw a lot of people making comments about that, and yeah, really clever, Gundam. But again, if Elan wasn't a tragic character before, he really is in this episode. There's a reason that he doesn't have a birthday, and that's because he has no past at all. He's had this personality sort of thrusted on him forcefully. And at first, when they introduced this concept, I thought maybe he's like a clone of Elan. Apparently, that's not the case. They decide to pull a whole John Travolta, Nicolas Cage face-off scenario, where they literally were able to put his face on this other person's body. A person whom we never really get to know at all, who they really are, where they came from. And most disturbing of all of these surrogates are completely replaceable, expendable. If they die and they don't work out, they're just gonna bring in a brand new one with a completely different personality. And that's basically what happens by the end of this episode. But of course, before we get there, we gotta talk about some other big developments in the series. Like at the very beginning, Suletta's mother actually meets up with the other woman who's working with Pale Technologies, a woman who goes by the name of Belle Maria Winston. And apparently they knew each other all these years ago during that big pivotal incident in the prologue episode. And really, that's all there is to it. I really wish we'd have had a little bit more interaction between these characters, as it seems kind of tumultuous to say the least. We also finally get to see the results of all the losses that Guel has been having, and he has basically been kicked out of the academy. He no longer has anywhere to live, and his younger brother is going to be taking over as representative of the Jeddirk house. And Guel seems to take this in stride. He basically is just camping outside during all of this episode, watching the duel on his very own personalized screen, but I can't wait to see the triumphant return of this character because it's coming, and I have a feeling that it's going to be really exciting. But the meat and potatoes of this episode is definitely Suletta versus Elan, and before that battle even starts, we get to go through the stipulations of what their battle is going to be. We learned in the previous episode that Elan wants that aerial Gundam for himself. As for Suletta, she doesn't really have any sort of goal or stipulation, at least until we get to the actual duel here. And of course, that's to build up a little bit of mystery and to give us a little more tension between the characters. This is an act of desperation on her part to try and appeal to Elan's humanity just a little bit, but it doesn't really end up getting through. And before you know it, they're going to have their battle. And luckily, this time, we're going to get a change of scenery. We're actually going to go out into the depths of space and have a big, old-fashioned Gundam space battle. And this one is really cool because it also means that the aerial is going to receive not so much an upgrade as it is a brand new accessory Mercury, which are these thrusters, which luckily her team is able to build from scrap, and it actually helps her out a lot in this battle. But it's when the actual proper battle begins that things truly manage to pick up, especially with Suletta making her declaration that if she wins, all she really wants is to learn a little bit more about who Elan truly is. And then, bang the gong, the battle is on, Suletta versus Elan, Ferric Gundam versus Aerial Gundam, and it is really exciting because we're now having a Gundam on Gundam battle in the series for the very first time, and it looks really damn cool the entire time. Of course, with both of them using their signature abilities, the bits. But of course, you're going to get a lot of classic mecha action from this episode. Everything from beam sabers to beam rifles, shields, and of course those bits, which are really the stars of this episode. With both of them using them in very distinctive ways, with the Ferric Gundam continuing to try and use its paralysis beams, and of course, Aerial Gundam using its to form its shield, its gun, and all of its potential weapons. And just when you think Elan actually has the advantage in this battle, slowly he starts to get pushed back when they reach the outer borders of this entire battle arena. And this is where the pooch effectively gets screwed in this episode, in a scene that is honestly kind of disturbing, as it seems like the Aerial Gundam has adopted that technology that we saw in the prologue episode of the series, which is essentially an energy emitter which allows all Gundams to basically just shut down just like that. She's able to use this against the Ferric Gundam, essentially just immobilizing it in the middle of space, allowing her bits to go in and destroy it all on their own. See, that's the thing. Suletta doesn't seem like she's actually responsible for defeating Elan in this episode. It's almost as if these individual bits which are attached to the Aerial Gundam seem to have a mind all their own. In fact, there's even a moment where Elan seems to have this weird vision of these things which exist in a completely different space, a different dimension, if you will. It's very new type-ish, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it almost as if there are like these weird living AI souls which exist within the Aerial itself, which basically took control. Essentially, it took the wheel from Suletta, taking over this battle and defeating him in a massive spectacle of glory. It's shocking and a little disturbing, but it's also followed by a heartwarming scene where Suletta manages to go over to Elan, embrace him a little bit, and actually treat him like a human being, as a real person with a past, who has friends and family, those being the current people that she is associated with. And she even desperately tries to give him his very own birthday in this episode, and it seems like everything's gonna wrap up real nicely. They're even gonna have a nice date together where they can finally sit down and talk amongst one another, and she can learn a little bit more about him. That is until we get to the very end of the episode, where we get a very tragic and very scary ending, where we go back to the Pale Technologies group, where apparently they are just going to straight up dispose of Elan number 4, quite literally hanging him up and executing him with a massive beam-like weapon, getting ready to move on to what I'm presuming is going to be Elan number 5 with a completely different personality, and someone's got to take notice of this. This episode made it pretty clear that Elan number 4 is nothing like the real Elan. He even comments on this, wishing that his personality would be a little more upbeat, but honestly, that's just the way this character is. He was basically thrown into a situation that he didn't want to be in. He was taken from his family, having no memories of his past, only maybe potentially of his mother when he had a birthday when he was younger, and that's it. Forced to simply be the battery that operates this freaking Gundam. And batteries get used, they get thrown out, and they get replaced. Oh, and to add a little bit more of a creep factor to this episode, we also have Suletta singing Happy Birthday yet again, as Elan does the same thing right as he is executed. Frankly, this episode is just cold. You know, as fun and as bubbly as the Witch from Mercury can be at times, I was waiting for that moment where it was going to swerve right back into creepy territory, and it didn't really take all that long. I know a lot of people were slightly disappointed that we were essentially just getting another duel type series, akin to say maybe Gundam Build Fighters, everything's in a school-like setting, but it's very obvious from the entire series, and especially from this episode right here, that it's going to swerve into some really dark stuff, and I can't wait to see eventually what that's going to snowball into, especially with the implication that we're now living in a world with technology where people not necessarily are cloned, but they can literally have their faces plastered onto other individuals. Not to mention, it adds this brand new little layer of paranoia to the rest of the series. How can we even trust that any of these people are the real people themselves? For all we know, there's more doubles in the show, and we don't even know about it. There's even a small possibility that Suletta might not even be the real Suletta at all. Look, I'm no mathematician, I'm not great with numbers, but at the very beginning of the episode, Suletta's mother met with that woman Belle, and she mentioned that all of these events happened about 21 years ago. And as far as I know, Suletta is only 16, 17 years old, so how does this add up? Is there an event that we haven't quite seen yet, or is there some other tampering going on with Suletta herself? Is she actually a little bit older? Is she even the real Suletta at all? It's creepy because there's an organization out there that can quite literally turn people into other people. And that adds this brand new layer of depth to the show that I honestly didn't think that it was going to have. It made what I thought was already a really good show into a great one. But most importantly, it's gonna get people talking. And one of my favorite things about doing these reviews is getting to hear from you guys. I've been getting some amazing comments and discussions, and I love reading them all. I try to reply back to the ones that I can, but the fact of the matter is, you guys are hardcore fans of the Gundam anime franchise, and I just love hearing your thoughts and theories about this show and where it could potentially go, and I really want to hear your thoughts about this episode. For me, this one was really damned good. I'd say it was a 5 out of 5 in my opinion for how it completely subverted my expectations and gave me some surprises, especially because now I have no idea where the show is going to go from here, but damn, I cannot wait to see next, especially with the implication that we're going to be getting a brand new Elan. That's going to be really freaky. But what about you guys? What did you think about the latest episode of the series, the tragic story of Elan number 4? Do you think we're going to get a 5th one? Are we going to get even more? What do you think is going to happen for the rest of the series? And what was the deal with that one moment where the aerial Gundam took control? Thoughts, theories, hopes, dreams for the future of the Witch from Mercury. Let's talk about it. Comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby. Face